Chapter 2, 1 Part 2. After half an hour, the two finally finished washing and set off from outside Forgetful Island while making a fuss, hired a boat at the ferry port, and went all the way north to Ꭹoጄ Mountain. After going ashore, abandoning the boat and hiring a car, the scenery of Ꭹoጄ Mountain is picturesque. It was the spring of March, and the flowers were blooming everywhere. ᎢℋᎪNN sat in front of the car humming a song, dangling her two white and tender calves, and looked around curiously at the roadside scenery. Ꭹoጄ leaned against the window without bones, with one hand, and his handsome face was crooked and deformed. From time to time he recited a few sour poems, such as "The beauty of the flower is extraordinarily beautiful, and the shadow is pitiful, and what occupies the beauty of the world, Cheng Feng, I'll come again," and so on. ᎢℋᎪNN listened to it for a long time, but she finally couldn't help it. She leaned over and scratched Ꭹoጄ's face with the dog's tail grass in her hand. "Hey, brother beggar. It's useful to be called big brother, but it's useless to be called beggar. The world is hot and cold." Ꭹoጄ lazily flicked away the dog's tail grass and asked, "What's the matter, little girl?" ᎢℋᎪNN said, "What are you, a beggar, doing recited poems all day long? Aren't you from a beggar sect? It's right to call dirty clothes sect as beggar. Do you think the disciples of the sect can't dress up, writing and read books?" ᎢℋᎪNN didn't expect that there was such a difference, so she became curious for a while. "I see that you have read books and you are so good at martial arts. How could you join the beggar sect?" Ꭹoጄ changed to a more comfortable sitting position, withdrew his long legs that had nowhere to rest in the narrow carriage, and said, "What's good about beggar sect is, you can travel all over the world freely. There is no need to recite the scriptures and have no gangsteries. Humans are lazy by nature, and I can't stand being stuck in one place all day long. I just want to travel all over the mountains and rivers and four seas in this life and taste all the delicious food in the world." As he said that, he casually tapped on ᎢℋᎪNN's nose and said with a smile, "Of course, it would be better if there was a companion." ᎢℋᎪNN snapped his hand. "Are you looking for Bai Yingying? Yo, are you jealous?" ᎢℋᎪNN blushed, quickly turned around and turned her back to him. "Who's jealous? Think beautifully." After passing Ꭹoጄ Mountain, crossing Dongting Lake, and heading north to Xiangyang City, the two deliberately concealed their deeds, and they walked along the way for more than half a month. They never met anyone from the Five Poisons sect. Ꭹoጄ seems to be carefree, but he is also quite considerate personality. No matter where he goes, he can arrange accommodation and clothing. In addition, he is rich in experience and knowledgeable. He knows illusions when he sees mountains and rivers, and he knows all the gossip and anecdotes of major sects. No matter who talks to him, he feels like a spring breeze. As she gradually went deeper into the Central Plains, ᎢℋᎪNN also had several thoughts of leaving without saying goodbye. Whenever it was quiet at night, she secretly took out the orb in her arms and watched it emit a seductive glow in the dark. The impulse would be extremely strong. However, she heard Ꭹoጄ calmly and relaxed from the wall, as if there would never be any defense. Somehow, her determination to push the window quietly weakened, and the girl's ignorant heart seemed to be entangled by some invisible thread. The world is so big, if you wander alone, even if you have peerless magic skills, you will be very lonely, right? If someone is with me every day, listen to the wind and watch the moon together, drink and eat meat together. ᎢℋᎪNN gradually became fascinated, but what appeared in her mind was Ꭹoጄ's ruffian and very handsome face. Ꭹoጄ seemed to be unaware of this little girl's chaotic thoughts. When he first entered Xiangyang City, everything felt new, and within a few days, he visited all the famous restaurants in the city. At this time, it was the third month of March. The night market in the city was full of lights and flowers. ᎢℋᎪNN's eyes were hot, so the two went out to go shopping together and bought a sugar-coated haws to eat separately. She watched the young men and women holding hands all over the street and passing by affectionately. Shuze suddenly let out a long sigh. Yunxuan thought he was going to start habitually flirting again, but after that sigh, she heard him say, Xiangyang City. After waiting for a long while, Yunxuan asked curiously, what's the matter? The Jin Kingdom has always regarded Xiangyang City as a possession. In recent years, the Tianren sect has even colluded with the Five Poison sect in the southern border, and has made frequent moves in the Central Plains. If this battle really starts, the current prosperity of fire trees and honeysuckle will probably turn into mourning everywhere. When Yunxuan heard about the Tianren sect and the Five Poison sect, her face changed slightly. Why do you talk about this so eloquently? Shuze smiled slightly, it's just emotion in my heart. It just so happened that the fireworks took off not far away, turning into a splendor of gold and silver interlaced. Passers-by stopped and pointed in admiration. Yunxuan took the opportunity to hurriedly change the topic, and looked around on tiptoes. Hey! Hey! However, she was petite and could not stand out in the crowd. She was suddenly picked up by Shuze and carried on his shoulders. This time, Yunxuan was one head higher than everyone else. Her vision was suddenly clear, her voice was full of panic and shyness that couldn't be concealed. What are you doing? Let me down. Don't move around, be careful you fall. Yunxuan stopped speaking, her tender cheeks flushed, and she hooked Shuze's neck with one hand. At this time, only a swoosh of fireworks rose into the night sky again, blooming into a gorgeous sea of light, reflecting the colorful sky and earth. Yunxuan secretly looked down, but hit Shuze's gaze towards her. At that moment, the fireworks were reflected in each other's eyes, and the eyes were like the sea, which made people deeply addicted. The noisy crowd of people in the night market gradually faded away, leaving only the gentle silhouettes of them leaning against each other under the starry sky. Night. It's getting late. Yunxuan hurriedly avoided her sight and said, go back early. Shuze, who has always been serious, didn't flirt uncharacteristically. He responded with paused, and smiled. It was really late. When they went back, the lights in the inn were all out, and it was dark. The two pushed open the door of the store, and suddenly Shuze stopped abruptly. Yunxuan slammed into his back, and before she could make a sound, she realized that something was wrong around her. The air was filled with a certain icy, dank, and instantly ominous aura. At this moment, there was only a light whistle, and several candles were automatically lit in the dark hall. It turned out to be a faint green light, reflecting the face of the person who came. It was a man with a very tall figure, thin and sallow face like a ghost. Yunxuan just glanced at it and lost her voice. It's the silver-toed fragrance lord, Ꭹ. Shuze tickled, do you know him? Yunxuan knew that she had made a slip of the tongue, but before she could answer, she saw Ꭹ sneered. His face seemed dull and unremarkable, but his smile was sinister, and his voice was sharp and hoarse. You apostasy. Yunxuan was shocked and subconsciously glanced at Shuze. To her surprise, Shuze was not surprised at all. He probably noticed that her eyes were full of anxiety, and even turned his face and smiled slightly, as if to say I guessed it a long time ago. Yunxuan was stunned for a moment, only to hear Ꭹ looking up and down at Shuze. Are you the Beggar Sect who injured Bai Yingying outside Forgetful City? Shuze said helplessly, exactly. You are very courageous, it seems that you don't want to live anymore. Shuze pointed at Yunxuan, and said sincerely, I didn't do it on purpose, but Poison's fairy love for me. The Kuei-si lover seemed to have some misunderstanding. When she came up, she shouted to fight and killed. Forced by helplessness, I could only do it. Who knew that the spiritual snake of the noble religion was so indestructible? Unbridled. The word Ꭹ had not yet landed, his whole body had flown in the sky. His movements were so fast that they couldn't see clearly. In the blink of an eye, he appeared condescendingly in front of the two people, and a blue-ray machete chopped down. Yunzhuan's shrill scream cut through the air. Be careful. Poisonous. Boom. With a sharp and loud sound, Shuze swept away the dog-beating stick in his hand, and slammed the machete with a force of over 1,000 ounces. Yunzhuan was caught off guard and was pushed back a few steps by Shuze, almost knocking over the table and chair. I've heard for a long time that the disciples of the Beggar Sect are bold, claiming to be the first in terms of righteousness. Today, when I see it, they really live up to their reputation, and they willingly die in order to protect the traitors of our sect. The dog-beating stick and the machete collided with each other. Shuze's hand holding the stick trembled slightly because of the pressure, but at this dangerous juncture, he still had the heart to smile, even though the smile was a bit bitter. Although the Five Poison sect is located in the southern border, at least it is also a big sect. Why is it necessary to chase a little girl to death? Little girl. Ꭹraised his eyebrows sarcastically, and said, do you know why she apostates and runs away? Shuze choked slightly. This little girl must have made up a lie. Hey, no wonder, walking around the world with strange treasures, she managed to find a thug who slammed into the door by himself. It's too late to prevent you, so how can I tell you the truth? Ꭹpaused, did not relax the strength in his hands, and immediately grinned amidst the creaking sound of the metal stick and the machete, which reflected the particularly gloomy light of the knife. Anyway, the two of you are going to die under my sword today. Even if I tell you, I won't be afraid of leaking it out. I just want to make you a clear ghost. Do you know why my Five Poison sect chased her all the way? Not far behind Shuze, Yunzhuan's ear was buzzing, and she involuntarily called out with a trembling voice. Brother Beggar. Because she stole something, it was the Holy Spirit pearl that I made. Ꭹslammed his knife, and the metal friction made a harsh sound. This thing is the treasure of mine, you say, how can I let the two of you live in this world? The machete swung the dog-beating stick like a poisonous snake, and attacked from different directions like lightning. The speed was as fast as splitting out several identical weapons. Fortunately, Shuze was barely able to block it. The sound of swords and soldiers colliding was like a torrential rain in an instant. Ꭹdodged and flew back, and at the same time fired several hidden weapons, only to see the dog-beating stick waving into an airtight barrier at the critical moment, blocking all the drama. Poisonous weapons were shot down at the same time. Good. Ꭹshouted, and at the same time, he used a poisonous trick. Shuze was just finished the old tricks, the new tricks yet to come. He was about to be covered by the room full of cloudy wind. At the critical moment, he saw Yunzhuan rushing from behind, grabbed him and jumped back. She broke through the window lattice of the store, with a loud bang and landed on the open space outside the inn. Brother Beggar. Yunzhuan raised her head in fear, and caught a glimpse of Shuze's serious expression, and her heart sank into the bottomless abyss. He must be angry, Yunzhuan thought. What to do? Will he scold me for cheating and lying? He originally had nothing to do with this matter, but now, will he leave me and walk away? Just as Yunzhuan was about to say something, she saw Shuze raised his hand, abruptly blocking the words she had not yet spoken. Immediately afterwards, a strange flute sound wafted from the inn shrouded in ghostly fires. Yunzhuan said sharply, 5 poison flute spells, cover your ears. But that was too late. The two of them softened instantly, and Ꭹrushed out of the door of the inn in the sound of the flute, like a black giant bird descending from the sky, with 4 dazzling moves, knocking Shuze's chest by surprise. Ꭹ's fighting strength was actually above Bai Yingying. After hitting, there was no gap, and he used all witchcrafts to kill Shuze immediately. However, Yunzhuan was actually a disciple of the Five Poisons sect, and when she saw Ꭹ's movements, she immediately had a premonition, and took out a small silver flute from her arms, and used all her strength to suddenly blow a sharp broken sound. Wuyan sneered, only to see that with the sound of the flute, the ground under Yun Zhuan's feet was arched, and then a slender black shadow jumped out of the ground, reaching like a sharp arrow in front of him. Wuyan narrowed his eyes. Wind centipede. The long-armed centipede had just enough time to hit the back of his knife-wielding hand, and was cut off by his backhand. The 5 poison sect goo worms and their masters are closely linked. Yun Xuan suddenly gushed blood like someone had been punched in the heart. Just you little girl, how dare you overestimate your own strength. Wuyan wanted to ridicule something, but he couldn't spit out the next sentence. The centipede that was cut into 2 parts bounced off the ground and stabbed him again. End of chapter 2, part 1.